All right. Hi, guys, and welcome to Fulton Street Beats. I got a weird setup going on here today, but I want to go over a few things. I had a rather lengthy email, and a fellow was interested in building a guitar for the first time, and I'm pretty new to building guitars, but I'm not new to building things like drums and what have you, but there is some specialty tools that you might want to acquire if you're building guitars, and I'm sure you've been poring over videos and you'll know what they are. Amazon carries some kits and some measurement tools and some things of that nature that come in quite handy. But if you're building a guitar for the first time and you don't have this stuff, what's the basic stuff that you're going to need to pull this off? Because remember, we can build it and set it up later on. But as long as we got a decent kit to start with, we can really do some amazing stuff as long as you have patience. And that's the number one tool that you need in your arsenal is patience. So I'm going to do a rundown of some basic things. This is everything pretty much that I used to build this Les Paul right here. And it turned out amazing. It's beautiful and it plays really well. And if you're wondering what the weight of something like this is done, if you got a quality kit, it's around 8.5 pounds, 8 to 8.5 pounds, depending on what you're running. I'm running some heavier tuners and they're Geiger lockers. I didn't really spare any expense with certain things on the guitar, and then some things worked out really good that I didn't have to upgrade. So, but a lot of aesthetics have been changed, the pick guard and what have you, and I put a bone nut on it, and I made it my way. And that's your number two tool. Have the mindset to do it your way no matter what anybody else thinks. It's very important that you're happy with it. It doesn't make a difference if anybody else is happy with it. Although we do love when people like, our finished product, but you have to live with it. And this particular Les Paul, I love it. I've been playing it every day, and I am very happy with the build. And I got around $225 in the build total. Now, we here at Fulton Street Beats are doing, and by we, I mean me, another guitar building. I don't know if you can see it over my shoulder here or not, but I'm a big Steve Vai fan. And the Ibanez had a guitar, the Gem 77 Woody, that came out, and it was a Steve Vai signature model, and it's beautiful. It's wood, and it's just black hardware, and it was just aesthetically beautiful. And of course, you had the vine running up the fretboard, the Steve Vai, really a signature of a guitar is having the vine run up the fretboard, and it does have the monkey grip, the monkey handle, if you will. So I'm currently doing that build right now, and it is probably the most fun that I've had in a long time. Now, I approached it in a rather stressful way, but soon came to really enjoy it. And let me give you across the spectrum of what I've found. Now, when I first approached building a guitar, I didn't know where to start, and I didn't really want to look where to start because I wanted to approach this as a novice. What am I going to get myself into? What are the battles that I'm going to have? What do I have the obstacles that I have to overcome? So the Les Paul build showed me those obstacles, and sometimes we went backwards, even though we ended up with a great finished product. This Steve Vai tribute guitar that I'm building is not something I want to take that route with. I really want to, cross my T's and dot my I's, if you will. So I'm going to give you a rundown here of some tools that I find are super helpful that you might have not have thought of. And I wish I have did some of this stuff with the Les Paul LP style guitar that I built. I wish that I would have done this, but I've learned. And I've learned this myself. I didn't see it anywheres. I just thought and said, hey, I think this will work better. So let's go over some basic tools that you will need if you buy a guitar kit. Number one thing, get a kit that, and the Les Paul kit was cheap. It was $78. They're $109 now. But I had to do a lot to it, a lot of drilling. I had to drill for the bridge, and I had the drill for the saddle. Now, a first-time builder probably don't want to do that, and I understand that. And that's why the kit was so cheap. And don't get fooled by prices, because you can get the same kit for $109 that is $225. So watch what you're looking at. Electronics on these seem to run the same across the board. So, but let's get into some of the tools. Like I said, some of the tools you're going to need, and things you probably aren't thinking of. Now, if you're doing this at home, and this is the tools I'm going to, if you're doing this at home with no special tools, and I say special tools, there's some things that you're going to need, depending on the build kit. So let's just start with a good screwdriver set, and you're going to need a variation of Phillips head screwdrivers, especially. You want to make sure they have the correct bits for when you're screwing in your tiny little screws for things such as truss rod covers, screwing on the back of your headstock, screwing in the screws for the tuners, the peg tuners. You don't want to strip those, and you want precision, and you want something that's going to bite it and you're not going to slip. Now, there's certain things that you do not pre-drill, and that's because we don't want anything, I don't want anything sloppy or loose. And if you're dealing with a good quality wood, such as mahogany or most woods that you're going to get with these guitars, they will expand open. They should be softer where they'll expand. A hardwood will split. So keep that in mind. But on your softer woods, your quality woods, and I say, there's, of course, they're hardwoods. What I'm talking about is pretty much the grain of the wood. We don't want to get too close to edges and without drilling in if you got to put a hole in. But generally speaking, on little screws, you don't need to pre-drill. Although I do pilot them first in a weird way, and we're going to get to that. So, screwdrivers. You're going to need screwdrivers. Just get a various set of good screwdrivers. If you have a screwdriver pack, that's what you're going to need. Make sure you got all sizes. Okay? Second, you're going to need a 10 millimeter deep well socket. This is going to be when you put your tuners on and you're tightening the front of your tuners. And you're going to need to snug them by hand first and then give them just a little bit of a tighten when you're done aligning and doing all your aligning. You're going to need a good straight edge. And you're going to need a good straight edge that's a square. These are the things that I found crucial for measurements and getting things perfectly placed. If you're doing the wiring, if it's not a pre-wired kit, and most of these are going to require some wiring, make sure just in case you got to trim some wires back. You have some wire cutters and strippers. You're always going to need a set of scissors. Scissors are quick, fast, and easy. Make sure you got them. Some needle nose. Sometimes you need to hold something. Sometimes you just need to get in somewhere to pull something out. Have a set of needle nose handy. A good set of side covers for cutting the strings when you're done. And if you're doing like a gem build like I am, you need to cut the balls off the front to insert them in the slot of the Floyd Rose. A simple tape rule, and you're going to need a piece of wood similar to this, could be longer. I wouldn't recommend any shorter. What this is for is to put on the body, into the neck of the body of the guitar before the neck is on, so you have a handle to hold this so you can do your spray work if you're working with, if you're working with acrylics, if you're working with lacquers, if you're working with anything like that, you're doing a spray, you have a handle. Because when you're spraying, you don't want it flat. You want a bit of an angle. You can turn the guitar, get your edges This is one of the best things to use. Just find a nice piece of wood, drill it out so you don't split it. This is a hardwood, so I didn't want to split it. So I drill it out, and it simply goes into where your bolt holes will be for the guitar. Now, if you have a set-in neck, you can still do this. You're simply just going to use sheetrock screw, put it through a couple of them into where you're going to have the neck, and it's really simple. And speaking of sheetrock screws, have a couple of these on hand. I found that these are one of the most important tools. 3 things that you would never think of: a longer sheetrock screw, a shorter sheetrock screw, and a push pin. These 3 things right here are godsends. They are lifesavers, and most people haven't even thought of using these. Why, Mike? Well, let me explain. When you need to drill a hole or you want to pilot something, you want to make sure something's perfectly straight. I'm going to give these tuners for example. Back here on these tuners, you have these little screws that go in. Now, this is not pre-drilled. So once I get my alignment right and I snug them up in the front using my 10mm socket, I take a push pin and I center it right where the screw is going to go, and I push it in and I pull it out. I make sure it's straight. I do the next one, and I do every one. What that just created was a perfect pilot, so you don't go off for your screws and you don't have willy-nilly tuners. Now, that also works with your strat buttons for a pilot on each side, and any other hole that you need, small screwed hole that you need to screw into the guitar. It is amazing. On the gem back here that I'm building, I don't know what I would have done without it, because on the gem, your strat button is literally right on the edge of a sharp horn. Simply take your tack, push it in all the way down, pull it out, take your screw gun or screwdriver if you're using a good one and you got patience. Carefully put your screw with your button right into where you're going. Easy peasy, no fuss, no muss. And there's other things. We also pilot using the sheetrock screws. Why sheetrock screws? Because they're very pointy and they get a quick bite and make just a dimple when you need a dimple to make sure you're going to set your drilled in screw in correctly. For instance, with the gem with a bolt-on neck, in gems, a real Ibanez gem comes with a bolt-on neck. This is not a real one. This is a tribute guitar, but it is of high quality. So when I'm doing the neck and I get ready to bolt the neck on, I take the sheetrock screw and I put it on the screwdriver, and you'll find that the hole that this sits in is precise. And I put it in and I give it a couple twists and I drive it down in, well, yeah, I actually do mine with a screw gun, but about halfway into, with about half of the sheetrock screw sticking out. And I do that for the top 2 where I'm going to bolt it on. I do it for the top 2, and then I take my regular screws. I don't have any here. Take my regular screws in the screw gun, zip it down, snug it, not tighten it, and then proceed to the bottom 2 and do the exact same thing and repeat. You cannot screw up your alignment this way. That's why sheetrock screws and a little push pin are crucial to me. Another thing that's crucial, you're going to need, where is it? Hiding? There, it's right in front of me. A soldering iron. You're going to need a good soldering iron with a couple different soldering tips if you have to get in. You don't want a big soldering gun, because you can't get into things when you need to get into them. For instance, the gem, I had to wire a ground wire to my spring clip in the back, and this makes it a breeze. A big gun, although you can use them, it's a little cumbersome. And of course, you're going to need your solder. Other things of importance: various size Allen keys, a nice long one to adjust your truss rod if need be. And like I said, your various tips for your should come with it for your soldering iron. And drill bits. Drill bits. Even if you got a kit that doesn't need drilling, sometimes you need a good drill bit. For instance, on the gem behind me, I needed to clean up a hole that the ground wire ran through inside the body because even though you're not going to see it, I knew it was there. And I used a drill bit to clean it up and then proceeded to wrap some sandpaper around that drill bit and just sand it inside the hole and smooth it out. Make it a little more aesthetically pleasing and made sure there was no sharp wood edges to ever fray the ground wire. What you're definitely going to want is a good set of strings. I recommend buying a 3-pack. Because sometimes it's when you get done, you're trial and error and you're tuning and you just never know. Get a 3-pack. They're cheap, $15. Or these Slinkies, 3-pack. If you're doing various builds, you'll thank me. Because the strings that come with these guitars, if you get a kit, are junk. They're garbage. They're shit. They're flat. They're just flat. Don't attempt to tune your guitar with them because you're going to be flat no matter what. Whether your intonation is correct or not, they're just a flat sounding string. So get some good strings and then you got a good place to start. Another thing you're going to need is a tack rag, a tack cloth. We're going to get into the finishing aspect. Get a tack cloth. And if you ever use these, you should know you just rub them over gently. You do not push. You don't want the waxes from this getting into your finish. You just want it to pull off any light debris that may be there before your finished result. Steel wool. And I don't know why I don't have any on the table. I should have, but no, there we are. Okay. 4 zeros. Remember that. Okay. Steel wool. Why is this? This is to polish your frets. And don't be afraid of scratching anything. This is going to shine your frets and it's actually going to smooth out your fret board. This works phenomenally. I'm going to do a video on the gem showing that to you. So anyhow, you're going to need some steel wool. You're going to end up doing any fret work. And at a minimum, I recommend polishing your frets and a lot of people tape off their fretboard. I don't do that. I actually run it right over the fretboard, and I do the whole thing. If you got a good fretboard, there's no worries. If it's a shitty fretboard, yeah, you can worry a little bit. But good fretboards polish up also. Makes a nice, smooth, buttery play. So these are just some of the tools, and of course, we're going to need various sandpapers, and one of your most important ones is going to be 220. Your 220 is usually what I start with. You can do this by hand. I did everything by hand with the Les Paul. On the gem, however, because I was we're going for perfection on the gem. We use a mouse sander. Mouse sander, I don't recommend a palm sander, a orbital sander. I don't recommend one. You simply can't get into nooks and grooves with it. And just be careful because even though it's 220, you can go too far. You're also going to need some 400. 600 I recommend, 800. Then for your finishing, you're going to need, I go 15, 2,500, and 3,000, depending on the job that you're doing and what you're using for your finish or your clear, if you are using a clear. So keep that in mind. And then you're going to, of course, need, at the end, you're going to need some compounds to rub out, preferably some glaze and some good wax. So, masking tapes. Green tapes work really well for masking big areas. Your blue tapes, this is an Ace Hardware one. I don't recommend it. Get an automotive grade tape if you need some fine edges and we want to make sure nothing lifts. Get an automotive grade. Yeah, it's a little bit more pricey, but it will save you a lot of headache in the end. Now, here's something nobody ever does. When you're finishing up your guitar, you're doing your fret work or whatever have you, or your guitar's set and you just want it pretty. Coconut oil works amazing on fretboards. No need to go out and get anything expensive or any special guitar stuff. Coconut oil works amazing. It's been used for years. For some reason, nobody talks about it. I just run out. I got some organics. I had some because I use this all the time. Organic coconut oil. Rub it in your fretboard. Rub it immediately off. A little bit goes a long ways. Do not let it set. Just rub it on, rub it off, and done. I recommend you do this after you do your fret polishing. And I luckily have a variety of spare parts kicking around in case I need a washer or what have you. That's just me. You're going to need various, whatever you're using to finish the guitar. I mean, this is going to be up to you. There's different ways of getting different results. If you just want a quick finish, you can just do a quick stain. You can use, a lot of you people use True Oil. True Oil works fantastic. As a lot of you know, I've finished some gun stocks and it works great. It's good stuff. I don't like to use it on a guitar, but that's just me because it's an instrument and it can be finicky once you start building it up pretty thick. It can get pretty finicky. What I do recommend is a wipe-on poly. Wipe-on polys work amazing. Min-matte wax wipe-on polys work really well. Don't let them freak you out because if you take your time and do light coats and make sure you're not running it, hang it to dry, whatever you have to make it dry and dry level, it works great over your stains. It works great. You are the master of your universe as far as depth and clarity goes using this stuff. And if you got the time, and like I said, patience is the number one tool you need. It works fantastic. And if you're just experimenting, if you want to get a guitar and you're like, I want to experiment, don't be afraid to experiment. Yes, we all mess up. Things can be corrected, although there's nothing worse than getting done with a guitar and you have something beautiful and go, you know what? I'm going to try this. And then you screw it up. And I've done that. You're going to want to keep some acetone around because it really makes a quick cleanup if you get things on things you're not supposed to. Or you're using a lacquer and you need to get some lacquer off quick, as I found out. And if you watch that episode, you'll know what happened. Speaking of lacquers, I like to lacquer my headstocks. And this headstock is lacquered. So we put the logos on. And no, guys, it's not a Gibson. But I like the classiness and the look of it. But this is lacquered over. Just so you know. Just lacquer over stain. And also the gem behind me that is currently being built, that is also lacquered over a probably about 8 coats of lacquer. Because the emblem, the Ibanez gem emblem, I say, emblem, it's so thick. The decal that I had to put on, the gold part's raised, so it's textured, and I wanted that. I wanted to feel a texture in my headstock of the letters. I wanted it to flow in, so I don't know, probably about 8 coats of, I'm going to guess 8, maybe more, of lacquer over that to kind of bury it in. And it still gives me a raise, but it's sealed and it looks amazing. Still hasn't been buffed out, but it looks amazing. So this is just an idea of some of the tools that you're going to need. I recommend a little brass hammer for pounding in your little, I call them bosses. You can call them studs, whatever you want for whatever your bridge is or what have you. A little brass hammer. You can use a little piece of wood. Personally, I just use a little socket to tap it in, but different strokes for different folks. And I come up with my own contraption for a little neck holder for when you're working on the guitar and you want to sit it down. It's protected and it's soft and it works, holds it in place. And of course, a mat to lay it on. If you need a mat, you can use an old, you can use a welcome mat, whatever you need to do. Because I'm not equipped with a lot of things, so I'm trying to keep things relatively inexpensive as far as tools go. Now, the gem that we're building behind me, like I said, it's an expensive build. So what I did is I called up a company and I said I want a gem body, but I wanted some different things to it. there's some things about the gem I don't like, and we're making it our own, right? But I do love the look of the woody 77 woody gem. So I don't like where the tremolo sits and they have those little fingers carved out in the wood in the front. I wanted mine squared off, so I made sure to get a body that was squared off so it just looks aesthetically correct to my eye. That's just my opinion. Yours may vary, but it's my guitar, it's my build, that's what I'm doing. Now, I did order, and I shouldn't have, but I did order a few different Floyd Rose trims, and I was going to go with the gold, but it really took away from what I was trying to do. So I ended up using the black one. The black one is on it. That's one we're going to go with, and I was decisions, but it does have a couple touches of gold here and there. For instance, as you see that these studs are swapped out, and this has the black ones in here. I use the gold ones on the guitar. And as far as your nut up top, you see this is black and gold, and it has the black hold down clips. On the other one, it's black in the back, and it has the gold just on the top, the gold hold down clips on the nut. So that's some differences. On the back of the plate on the back of the guitar, your cavity plate, I'm using gold screws on that. Be very careful with this. And here's another thing. Remember what I said about the push pins? If you're putting a plate on, use a push pin. What I recommend is this has 6 of them. Get 6 push pins. Center them. Push them in all the way. Give them a good twist. Pull them out. And then when you go to drill your screws in, you're all set to go. It's perfectly aligned. You don't want your plate buckling on you one direction or another. That's why that's a good idea. Now, another thing. Screw these in slowly. They don't give you a lot of room on each side to put these screws in. So make sure when you put this cover on that you're not so close to an edge that you can crack the edge. And they're close. I mean, I measured mine. Mine are perfect, but I took the time to make sure it wasn't going to crack. Went very, very slowly. If you do have a small drill bit and you do want to drill out, although the push pin does the same thing, it just makes it cleaner and gives it a better bite for the screw. But you're more than welcome to do that. So there you go. And make sure you got a checklist of things you need to do. And as far as the gem goes, and we'll talk about that right now. Let's get into the gem a little bit, because I'm sure you guys want to hear about that. I wasn't set up to do this video, but I decided that I would, just to go over what you might need if you're interested in doing a first-time build. Now, the gem's a different story. Got a lot of money in the gem already. And that's because I am doing a tribute build. It's not just the body I want to look like the gem. I want it to play like the real deal. So some things, of course, is just not cost effective. For instance, these Floyd Rose are Floyd Rose branded and patented, but they're not the official Floyd Rose used on a gem. But for all intents and purposes, they will work fine. Same thing with our nut. But the finishes are good. Everything's machined properly. That's the first thing I check. I want to make sure it's proper. Number 2, ordering the pickups for the guitar was probably the most expensive part, because we're going with the Damasio Dark Matter pickups. Yes, the real deal, Dark Matter pickups. Now, as far as the pots go, I got some upgraded pots. I've got everything wired up over here with exception of I actually have some other pickups wired up right now, but they're going to be swapped out. And there's a pick guard that came with this body, and it's a white pearl. Not using it. So I just used it for my mock-up for my wires for my soldering. Make sure you got a good wiring diagram. And I downloaded a few of those. And I had them laid out in front of me. Make sure your wiring is correct and ready to go into whatever pick guard you're running or whatever. And unfortunately, these pick guards some of these come loaded with kits. Mine wasn't. So I had to do my wiring. I load it, I wire it, and everything should be good to go. And I use some pigtails to plug things together so it makes it easy when I need to take it apart again. But this is getting, like I said, dark matter pickups. Now, then I had to order a pick guard that matches the original Woody, or at least as close as I could that's available. I searched high and low. I found one, but it was sold a long time ago. So I searched high and low again, and I found a maple, because the one that comes on it is a special type of wood. Looks like a burl wood, but I don't think that's what it is. Some exotic wood. And I need at least that to be close. If we're doing a build that's similar, we need that, because that's a big part of the vibe of this guitar. So I found on Reverb a maple. Only one I could find. Maple. Take that back. I found another one, but it's in Greece, and I didn't want to order out of the country. So I found the guy who had one. It is used, but it's supposed to be in very good condition, and it should be shipped out today, as a matter of fact. But there's more, and that was not cheap, just so you know. Finding parts, even for these gems, is very expensive. It adds up quickly. So we have a little over $400 in pickups in this build. And we have a pick guard that, well, you can tack on another 100. Then we have, of course, our strings, which weren't much money, but we need the correct knobs to go on the pick guard onto the pots. And finding the right ones, as I found out, I could find tons of knobs, but finding the ones that actually matched what I was doing was, well, that was a challenge. And I finally found them, and well, they were close to $50. So little things can add up quickly. Very, very quickly. Now, where I did get lucky with this build is the neck was made perfectly for the body. It is a stunning body. The finish that it came with was actually pretty good. Now, I do have a lot of time into it, a lot of variations in stains to get a certain effect, which I had to experiment and have patience. Experiment on another piece of wood first to get the desired effect before I went forward. So I spent a good couple days experimenting with finishes to get it close to what I needed before I proceeded. And that brings us to the last story. What I had to do with this build, and I have a video that's coming out, and I'm doing a voiceover in the whole video, and it's going to be in 2 parts because they're so long. The finishing aspect is a little over an hour-long video, but it's over the course of 3 days. So take that in mind. Yeah, 3 days of work condensed into an hour to bring you exactly. So we have things from sanding the body, prepping the body, sanding the body, finishing the body, to shaping the headstock. Yes, shaping the headstock. And if you want to watch that, that'll be posted soon also. Parts 1 and 2 will be going up shortly. I just got to do the voiceovers for them, which shouldn't take but a couple hours. So the gem build is turning out to be awesome. That guitar feels amazing in the hands. I simply love it. And what I like about the gem is that wood look. I kept green. And I needed a finish that was glossy, but not glossy. Almost, we will call it a satin, even though the original finish they call a matte. No way is it matte. When they are done, that is definitely a satin finish. And the real gem color hues change in light that it's in. And I needed to capture that effect, even though my grain's different, because they used on the original Steve Vai guitar, they use a crotch mahogany. And we're just dealing with mahogany, not a crotch mahogany. And it's different grain, but we still got a good look. And how I had to do that, I had to go through various stages of different stains from a natural cherry to a espresso was at the end, espresso, and a red mahogany. So those three different things in different stages were applied at different stages, some over the top of each other, let sit, heavy coats, light coats. Then I had to actually color sand some stain in. And then I followed that up with a water-based polyacrylic spray clear, crystal clear spray. And if you guys have ever used that, that can get scary, but it's not scary. It's actually has more bark than it does bite. Yeah, it can get cloudy on you, but it goes away. Just don't seal over it before it goes away. I do something totally different with my polyacrylics. I use the crystal clear, and I build up a good 6 coats of it, and then I actually wet sand it with 400. And that can get scary quick because it will turn milky because it's water going into water base. And it'll turn milky. Give it a few minutes, let it evaporate. What I'm doing is just knocking down the surface quick. I am not trying to take anything down all the way because I want to maintain the wood grain that's in there. I want to be able to see the valleys. So I'm just knocking the very peaks off, where the spray left the peaks. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. So I do a quick wet sand with that. Quick. Careful of the edges, quick. And then what I do, about a half an hour after that, is I come back with a wipe-on, regular wipe-on, got some right over here. A regular satin clear wipe-on poly over the guitar. 1 light coat, followed by 2 medium coats. And I say medium light. I wait about 30 minutes in between each coat, and it's done. There's no farther sanding required unless you get something that sticks to it. I say sanding. You really don't need to. If all goes well and you do them steps properly, it will turn out beautiful if you're looking for a textured wood grain that really brings out all of the various colors that are in the stains, and that's what that guitar behind us has. So that was my technique for that. Now, as far as the neck goes, like I said, I lacquered the front of the headstock. The rest of the neck is just 1 coat, sanded really good, by the way. The neck is ended up with a 3000 to make it nice and fast. And then I do 1 coat of wipe-on poly, a deep coat, wipe it right in. Walk away, you're done. You'd have to do nothing else. And that's my methods of madness for building a guitar. Now, setup of the guitar is going to be another video. And I'm working on that because we have to set up the Floyd Rose. We got to do our intonate the guitar and make sure everything's right. And you guys, if you're not familiar with Floyd Roses, as I wasn't really, you need a good starting point. These need to be flat and level with the body. That's your starting point. You might search all over, trying to find that. Well, where do I start? There's this video and there's this guy, I'm just saying, I'm giving an example. There's a guy and he's showing you how to set up a Floyd Rose, but really he's not showing you how to set up a Floyd Rose. He's pretty much talking to himself about setting up a Floyd Rose. So what I'm going to try to do is at least guide you to the basic principles of where to start. I am no expert of where to start, but your starting point will always be making sure that your trim is level, where your body sits in the pocket here, is level with the body in a gem style anyhow. And and you can achieve, there's a great guy who sets up Steve Vai's guitar. There's a video about him, and he sets his up and he puts a little block underneath it here on top, and does all his setups, pulls it out, sets the strings back, because you want this to sit perfectly level with the strings on it, because we're going to use the tremolo both ways. So, anyhow, I'm not an expert, but maybe I can at least point you in the direction to start. Now, this was probably a lengthy video, but I think a lot of you would like to know the tools that you need to do a build without going overboard, and this is it, and a space to work. What's the number one tool? Patience. Oh, gem also. Another set of Geiger, expensive ones, Geiger locking tuners on that. Why locking tuners on a guitar that locks at the nut? It makes it easier to tune. It's that simple. Winding makes a guitar that's already got a lot of quirks for tuning that you have to contend with. It makes it easier with less winding, just locking it down at the peg. A lot easier to tune. That's why. Okay, guys, thanks for watching Fulton Street Beats. If you can, please be kind and hit that like button, share, subscribe. If you found this informative, hit that, like I said, hit the bell, hit the notification. And I'll be talking to you soon. And I got a lot of work to do, and I'm getting a little overwhelmed in my mind. But you guys have a great day, and it's good to see you back.